Greetings, Psychonauts, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Shit Talk featuring Zed Brannigan. Don't know what that was about, but today we're talking about how to recover from a bad trip. Get a lot of people messaging me saying they suffer with derealization, depersonalization, and just general PTSD sort of symptoms. After they have quite a profound trip. It can be a low dose trip, intermediate dose, high dose. It can be any psychedelic. They can even have a weed trip, or the forbidden phrase that nobody liked from that latest video. They can have a bad weed experience, and that can really send them schizo. I've had it before. It can definitely happen, you know. Every time I smoke too much weed nowadays, which is very, very rare, and I always kick myself for doing it because I know that it sends me absolutely west. It sends me into a cascading spiral of existential dread, and it can really leave me with leave me in quite a depressive episode. But basically, the gist of it, right, number one rule for coping with a bad trip, and it's the most simple rule: just give it time and you will heal. Literally, just have faith in the healing process. It's pretty cliche to say that, yeah, time is a healer, but it really is, honestly. And if you really want to amplify your healing process, this sort of goes into number two: stay away from psychedelics during that period, and even stay away from psychedelics for quite a long time. If you've had a bad trip, it's going to fall into one of three categories that Era with grades as being difficult experiences, bad trips, and train wrecks and trip disasters. So difficult experiences are going to be trips where, I don't know, these challenges, psychological, spiritual challenges will come up, and if you don't navigate them with consciousness and sort of let go, and let the psychedelic sort of wash over you, and you embrace whatever it's trying to show you, or you actually consciously circumnavigate whatever challenge it's presenting you in your own psyche, then that can turn into a bad trip. Then there's bad trips where it's like, okay, you just took the psychedelic and it just went to shit, and you were just battered with depressive thoughts, manic thoughts, just everything we would associate with negative emotions. And then the train wrecks and trip disasters, they're in a whole other ballpark, man. That's when you take the psychedelic and you fucking end up running around naked, and you get arrested, and loads of bad shit happens to you. You break your bones and you break your brain, end up in hospital. The classic negative reports that we seem to enjoy hearing about so much, and I get why people are so interested more so, because I've obviously noticed it's the spooky season of Vivek. Every October I like to focus on the darkness of psychedelics and hallucinogens, because I mean, I love Halloween and I like horror, so I like to get in the mood by doing that. And it's pretty clear that most people find shocking content more riveting than the positive, spiritual, transformative stuff. Generally, even though there's many reports on the channel that seem to really capture people's attention, that are just straight up pure bliss, glowing mystical experiences of experiencing transcendent self, godhood, the universal love. Everyone likes a bit of that, but we're humans, aren't we? We enjoy the drama and the suffering, and in a twisted sense, but also in an understandable sense, because I think the beauty of people sharing these negative experiences that they've had, it allows us to learn from their mistakes, and oftentimes these people make serious mistakes with their trips. It's pretty self-evident, and that's why I like to share them, because I think they have a place in informing people on how to properly approach these mind-altering devices. So yeah, number two would be just stay off psychedelics while you're healing, and even after you've healed, really reconsider your approach to psychedelics. Try and really contemplation is key. Contemplate where it went wrong. This is why writing a trip report is really quite beneficial for not only people who read it, but also for yourself. Reflect on your trip and try and see what caused the train wreck to happen, or what feelings or thoughts sort of allowed the bad trip to emerge. Obviously, sometimes there's just bad trips that just happen out of nowhere. I remember my first ever bad LSD trip. I'd been taking it for a good year or so, And I had, you always think that you can bite off more than you can chew. Although I wasn't biting off more than I could chew anyway. It was just a regular trip. I don't know. It was like 150 micrograms, just partying with my mates, having a fun time or whatever. And then I just literally went mute. I just felt like I was so dissociated or derealized from what was around me, and I couldn't enjoy the banter, all the fun that everybody was having at the party. I couldn't enjoy the music, and I just became a golem. A derealized golem who just couldn't connect with anything going on. And it was the first time I acknowledged that. I said to mates at the end of the night, I was like, you know what, I think I've actually just had a bad trip. And it was my first glimpse of what a bad trip really was. And it was, and me reflecting on that, I realized that what spurred that on was that I thought the psychedelic state that I'd been enjoying for a year up until that point was reproducible every single time, but it turns out that no, the psychedelic state is much more flexible and oftentimes quite unpredictable. I've said this many times. I don't know what's happening. Someone's chopping down a tree. Sorry about that. But we're in the flow state, man. I can't let it go. I've said many times that this is serious shit. Psychedelics is serious shit. Do not fucking mess about with psychedelics. Yes, they are some of the most profound, life-changing tools of all time, but they can also be some of the most destructive, actually dangerous tools. It's like my mate outside, he fucking chainsawing that bloody tree down. He knows how to use the chainsaw, but one day if he gets sloppy and he comes into work fucking, I don't know, on no sleep, and he's pissed off at his wife who's I don't know, I'm really hypothesizing this guy's situation, but regardless, if things in his life are in a turbulent state and he's experiencing mental turmoil, and then he gets his hand on the bloody steel saw, he could end up slicing his hand off. Even though he was a professional, your mental state going into these things is super fucking important. But also, another analogy, say if you're this guy and he chops down trees, what if he takes on a tree bigger than he's ever taken on before, and he has to use an even bigger chainsaw, like a fucking super double saw off Resident Evil 4 or something, and then he thinks he can handle it because he's got like some level of hubris going in, and just he's not tapered his expectation for what it's actually going to be like to be in the moment, and he ends up slicing his fucking arm off or something. And then you can relate that to psychedelics, where it can be very easy and understandable that people get lost in the constant chasing of higher doses. And mate, let me tell you, from reading many trip reports and hearing about psychedelics for years and years and years, and just having a very good grasp of how unique genetics can not gel, can conflict with a psychedelic. So you could have a unique genetic makeup. You take 5-MeO DMT one time and you literally drop dead. It can happen. It really can happen. It's something that you got to be aware of. Sorry, camera shut off as per usual, and the train of thought, it's gone. Right, rewind. The third best way to recover from a bad psychedelic trip is really get back in tune with life again. Start walking, start exercising, and I think all three of these points, give it time to heal. Secondly, stay away from psychedelics and psychoactive chemicals in general, anything that could trigger that experience again or put you in a low state. Thirdly, all three of these tie in together, and the third one, is just try and get back in tune with your health. Start eating. Maybe you already have a healthy diet and you exercise loads, but there's more you can do. Start reading. Start getting into personal development. Go back to the basics and try and really re-ground yourself. Reading books, hobbies, re-establishing friendships and relationships, meditating. Meditating is fucking crucial, I think. I've been getting back into meditating lately, and I've been doing 30 minutes a day, and it's just completely wiped away the monkey mind for now. It always comes back, but it's chipped away at the monkey mind that has been ailing me for a very long time. I used to meditate loads, but now I've got back into it. I've realised that it's almost like driving a car again, after not having driven in like a few years. Takes a little bit of getting used to, but it really is second nature. You never really forget, especially having done it that long. And yes, for anyone wondering, I am wearing James Sunderland's jacket from Silent Hill 2. So yeah, third point, as I've stated, I love repeating myself, as you already know. Reground yourself with healthy practices. Essentially, meditation, clean diet, exercise, personal development, reading books, anything you would consider personal development, new hobbies, new skills, re-establishing relationships, and just get yourself back into the beauty of the human game. And quickly, you will find yourself recovering from your bad trip. Although, it must be said, there are different gradations to these bad trip experiences. You got your difficult experiences that you can be faced with a challenge during the trip and then turn into something positive. You got your bad trips that are like, fucking hell, this is really quite hellish. But oftentimes you will end up finding that these bad trips end up being your most constructive trips in the end, like my classic running around Manchester naked trip. That really was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me in a twisted way, because it taught me so much about me, life, the universe, consciousness, spirituality, and the extreme gamut of psychedelic states that can be experienced, whereas I just felt like, oh, you can just keep reproducing these states over and over again, and if you've got with the right setting and everything, you think you can control the experience, but it really can go this way, that way. Anyway, it wants, due to a variety of factors that you might not be aware of. So oftentimes we're not even aware of our state going into it. We always talk about setting, but sometimes we're just not aware of like the shadow, the subconscious energies that we're bringing into it that you've been suppressing, because the whole point is that you don't know about them because you're suppressing them. So they're also a key factor in what can spur on a bad trip. But then it must be, I think it's definitely time to retire this GoPro. She's on her less legs. So the last thing I was going to say was, if you do have a train wreck or trip disaster resulting in hospitalisation, PTSD and all other sorts of grim psychological and physical damage from your nightmarish experience, these three essential factors should be incorporated into your healing process. But if it's really that bad, you definitely want to check out a psychologist. There's so many different ways you can fuck yourself up through tripping, and sometimes time isn't a healer, and sometimes personal development, health practices, and abstaining from psychedelics and other psychoactive chemicals, which you definitely should be doing, aren't always the be all and end all for the healing process. And sometimes you've got to take it further and actually consider treating it through a health professional, a psychologist, doctor, and that's where I just don't know where to help you out. Obviously I'm not a professional, I can just help you out on the very base level. Also, it's helpful to talk to someone, a psychologist, talk to maybe some of your friends that have gone through an extremely destructive psychedelic experience, or anything to do with substance abuse. Obviously, different psychedelic bad trips and fucking yourself up on too much cocaine. Very different, but there's still some similarities, and definitely some advice you could get from your friends who've been through a similarly nightmarish time. But yeah, if you're in that level of having a train wreck or a trip disaster, your healing process will take a lot longer, especially if you've fried your brain, because it can happen. You got to be careful with this sort of stuff. How many times have I said it? There's no need to be taking large doses all the time, and even if you have been a bit desensitized to it and you feel like you can handle it and your body's acclimatized, body and mind have acclimatized to being in these states all the time, honestly, one time it can just go to shit. So be very cognizant of the fact that is a reality, and you've got to realise that psychedelics are no joke. They're very serious, and I don't think people take them seriously enough. I think most of you guys are very smart, very wise, and you've got good heads on you. But it's the internet, isn't it? There's a lot of destructive people out there, and obviously I empathise with them a lot. To be that destructive, you've got to have some demons going on. But you know what? I'll make them demons manifest by taking fuckloads of psychedelics and expecting them to sort you out. Life's a lot more complicated than just taking a magic pill and you being, oh, I'm fucking completely sorted now, mate. It just doesn't work like that. If only it did. Although that would be very boring and there'd be no point to life, really. Either way, if you're suffering with a bad trip, just know that it's not the end of the world. You are going to get better. Try and incorporate these 3 pieces of advice into your recovery process, and you will speed it up. The main one is the number one. Time is a healer. Eventually, it's going to pass, and you'll crystallize back into the human reality, the human game, and it'll all just be a bad memory. And then in the absolute utmost positive outcome of all of the bullshit that you might have gone through, the bad trip might end up transmuting into a good trip later down the line once you reflect on it. So yeah, just know that it's not the end of the world if you've had a really bad acid trip, even though in the moment and the days and possibly weeks after it can feel hellish. You just got to try and do your best to just get back into your self-care routine and really look after this fragile, delicate yet beautifully intricate thing that is the mind itself. But anyway, hope this helped some of you out, and look forward to more on-camera videos of me chatting shit.